Okay, we're gonna go up there and see if we can handle this bat guy. Okay. Shoot and dodge. Sometimes I miss, but I'm getting pretty good at this. Okay, one more and he's done. Oh, I missed. Actually, I'm gonna let him get me one time so I have some health that I need to heal. Boom, and then there, he's gone. Okay, and there I'm in the middle of the explosion of all the pickups. Bunch of gems and health, which I can use. And then I can pick up all these gems. And now he's respawned and come back for his revenge. And didn't need that health, so it made a funny noise. Run away. Okay, we're going to learn how to do that. Welcome back to LewyT Amusement Academy Part 23. Today we are going to update our bat enemy character so that when he is defeated, he drops some items for our player character to pick up. Okay, let's start with the scripts. That's my favorite part anyway. And there's really not that many script changes this time. We've got two scripts, and this first one, the touch pickup script, it's already existing. We don't need any new scripts. The touch pickup script has just some minor changes. The stuff at the top is actually not a real change. They just remove some comments and a blank line. Down here in the onTriggerInter, remember this is the touch pickup where an object like a gem or a heart, if you touch it with your character, you pick up that item. It was previously had a player manager, and the player manager is what gets the gems. But because player manager is a singleton, we can use playermanager.instance to get the gems, and we don't need a reference to this particular player manager. So that was unnecessary. But instead, we're getting a player character reference from the object that touches it. So we get the character the same way, character script, and then the player character script. And then the only thing we do with the player is we check that it's not null. And the reason I did this is after having made most of the other changes already, and I was testing, I found that if I killed the bat character and it dropped some gems and then it respawned in the same area, if it touched one of the gems, it would pick it up. And it didn't pick up for itself. I mean, it's not a player character. It can't even hold the gems. It was just giving the gems to me. When the enemy bat picked up a gem, it would add to the player character's own gem quantity. Well, that's kind of an interesting hack. You could imagine it being like a cheat that a player could use to get extra gems. That's not the way I wanted this game to work. So I made it require that it only picks up any touch pickup if it is the player character that touches the object. So that's what that's about. This next thing I think is just a comment removal. And then this is where we give the gems to the player manager instance. And then one more thing I did was I added the effect type none. This is not necessary, but it is in the list of effect types. None heal damage and gems. In the future, we'll probably add more. But the none effect type did not have a case for what it does if you touch it. So if you were to have a touch pickup object that had no effect type, had a non-effect type, it wasn't even being picked up. So basically, it would just ignore your interaction completely. It wouldn't destroy the item after you touch it. So by doing this, it allows it to work just like any other type of pickup. Not that we have anything like that, but I could imagine some sort of special object that all you have to do is touch it and it disappears. So I could think of it like a hidden door, like a wall segment. You can't see that there's a doorway, but if you go and touch it, it disappears and then you find the hidden doorway or something like that. Any number of things. So that is the touch pickup script. Very minor changes. Okay, the character script is also another updated script. There are no new scripts in this changes today. First of all, we just have a couple new using statements. There is a new public list called DropItems, and it's of type DropItem, and we define that later. And there's also a layer mask for the ground layer. Now, this character script isn't what controls like how you walk on the ground, but whenever a character dies, we want its drop items to drop on the ground. So we need to define what that ground layer is. In my game here, it's just the default layer, but we need some way to define what it is. So there it is. And then this next section is the struct that defines that drop item. So we need to set it as system.serializable, and this allows it to display in the inspector. And this list of drop items will be a list, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a little bit. So the first property of this struct drop item is the chance. It's just a float, but it has attribute on it called range, and that ranges from 0 to 1. And that's how you would define like a percentage. 0 to 100% is defined as like 0 to 1. So you have 0, you can have 0.1, you can have 0.01 or 0.25, anything in between the number 0 and 1. So chance is the chance that this particular drop item will drop at all. So if the chance is not 1, if it's anything less than 1, there's a chance that it won't drop. If you want something to always drop, you set it to 1. If you want it to sometimes drop, you set it to something less. But if it does drop, then the minimum count and maximum count come into effect. So you can say, there's a chance that it won't drop at all, but if it does, it has at least this many. And then at the most, it'll be this many. And then, of course, we also need to know what it is we're dropping. So that's this game object prefab. I want it to be able to drop items of different types. So touch pickup is one kind of object in the game that you just touch and pick it up. But then there's the inventory items that you can pick up using the E key. So I want it to be able to drop multiple different kinds of objects. So I'm using the game object type as the prefab. So no more changes for a little bit. In the die method, so this is when a character dies, it runs this other method called DropItems if any. And that's what's defined right after this. And the reason I use the name DropItems if any, and that if any, it does not have any effect on the code itself, but just visually, like logically for the developer, you and me, to understand what it does, that this method is not just dropping items, but it's deciding whether or not to drop any items. So that's where we deal with the chance property. You could have a list of drop items, but the list is empty. So if you loop through this list and there's nothing in the list, then it won't drop anything. But if there is one or more, then it'll go through that and it'll run this code. And if the chance of a particular item dropping is less than 100%, so 1 represents 100%, then we're going to check whether we're going to randomly pick a number between 0 and 1. And if that number is greater than the chance, then we don't actually drop the item. What we do is we continue, and continue just goes on to the next iteration of the loop and skips just one time. It skips the rest of this loop, but it will go on to the next item. So it continues to, each item has its own chance. So if it is going to drop, then that's when we use another random range of numbers to determine the actual number of the count of how many items are going to be dropped. Scoot this over so we can see everything. And it's just a random range between the minimum count and the maximum count of that item. And then whatever the number we end up with, it'll be somewhere between minimum and maximum. We loop through that, and for each one of those numbers, we pick a position and we spawn the item with the GameObject.instantiate. We need the prefab to instantiate. We're going to give it the position that we picked, and the quaternion.identity means that it's just not rotated at all. It'll just be the default rotation. Now we do need to identify this pick position. You might remember a method with the same name in the simple wander. It works similarly, but it's for a different purpose and it's a different script. So they're not the same thing. Actually, this is more complex because we are not just picking a place for the character to try to go to. We're picking an exact position where an item will be dropped at. And if we pick a position that is under the ground, which can happen because we have a ground that's sloped, if we pick a position under the ground, that object will never appear. The player will never see it above the ground and they won't be able to pick it up. So That's why we need a little bit more logic here. First of all, we have a drop radius, and that's just 3F. I'm just hard coding these numbers because it looks good to me. And the height from which it will drop above the level of the character that died. So we use the radius and to make a circle. So we're randomly picking a position inside a circle, and that's like a 2-dimensional circle. Unity engine.random.inside unit circle multiplied by the drop radius, and then we're picking a starting point from which it will drop. We're using the position of the character that died. We're using that random circle X and Y, but we're putting the circle Y in the position of the Z, so it's like a top-down circle. And then instead of the Y for the position, we're using the drop height, and that's basically, it's the position plus the drop height, so it's 6 units above where the character died. Anyway, now that we have this ray origin, which is where we start dropping, we're going to use a Physics.Raycast, and this is like just calculating a starting position and then a direction coming out of it, and that direction is going to go straight down. So we have the array origin, that's the starting point. Vector3.down is straight down, and then we use this out keyword to define a variable to receive the position that we hit something. Let's get this over some more. And we're going to go down a maximum of 150 units. That should be way more than needed. But if for some reason you were at the edge of a very high cliff and the character died, some object could be over the edge of the cliff and drop down at the most 150 units. If it failed to find something in 150, it will return. Well, I'll show you that later. And so it's defined, the ground layer is the layer it's looking for. And then we need this QueryTriggerInteraction.ignore so that it ignores triggers in its detection of colliders. So we have our bat character in the scene view, and I'm going to turn on gizmos. See that big circle, big sphere that surrounds the bat character? That is his detection sphere, so to speak. That's how he sees an enemy to attack. And that's a collider, and Raycast will normally detect that collider, and the items would just appear on at the top of that sphere if we don't ignore the triggers. So that's what we're doing with QueryTriggerInteraction.ignore. And then this out Raycast hit has a point, which is a vector3 position, and we're going to return that point. But we only return it if that Raycast hits something. So if, like we said, if we were at the edge of the world or the edge of a very high cliff and 150 units wasn't far enough to reach the ground, or maybe there was no ground underneath it, it would fail to return at this point. So we still need to return if it gets past this if statement, and we're just going to log that we missed. And Ray missed everything, and we're going to instead return the position of the character that died and just add that circle and the drop height. So it'll just appear at the point where it was dropping from. So, it's a 6 units above where the character died. Okay, that's all the scripting that we have in this episode. Okay, so now we want to go back to our bat character and the inspector, and we should have a DropItems list at the bottom of the character component. Okay, and we're going to open that up and then add an item to the list, open up the item, and then we can now set the information. Okay, so let's go to our items folder in the project. So there's 2 item folders. There's the inventory items and the pickup items. So in the inventory, all we've really made so far is a key and a mushroom. Let's go ahead and put a key in there in that prefab slot. And then we want to decide what's the chance of a key dropping when this bat dies, and how many will drop, if any. So we can say there's, let's say, 50% chance is going to be 0.5, or you can just drag it roughly to the center of this bar here. And then how many do you want to drop? 1 to 2 keys. Okay, I don't know. That makes sense, but there's a 50% chance that nothing will drop, but if something does drop, it'll be 1 or 2. Let's also add another one. So when you add another one, it basically duplicates the last one that was in the list, so we need to replace that key. I'm going to go to the pickups, and I think in general, there should be a chance that you get a healing whenever you kill an enemy, but not 100% chance, maybe like 75% chance that you'll get 1 to 5 hearts. So a heart only heals, let's see how much. We'll click on that and see. Heals 20 points. So 5 hearts would be 100 health. So you would never need more than 5. Let's go ahead and go back to the bat. And then in addition to keys and hearts, let's add another one, and let's say we have a chance of getting some gems. And let's say in this case, you're always going to get at least some gems. So minimum, we'll say we get 5 gems, and maximum, I don't know, 25? That's a lot. But let's just see what it does. Okay, there's one more thing that we need to set before we test this out. And at the very bottom of the character script, there is a ground layers. And this we need to specify as default because that is the ground is default. And so let's go ahead and try it now. Okay, we're gonna see what we can do. Oh, he got me, but I got him. I got him again. I'm getting better at this as I play it more. Okay, boom. He's dead, and now there's like 2 hearts and, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 gems. And I can go ahead and pick them up. Oh, I can pick up the hearts. Why can't I pick up the gems? I don't know. And he respawns pretty quick. Let's fix that. Okay, I think I found the problem. So my gem prefab isn't a really good prefab. I have the gems in the world, and if you look at one of those, it's got a box collider. For some reason, my prefab, I must have dragged the gem into the project before I added the box collider, and then added the box collider to the gem in the world and never updated the prefab. Okay, this is a quick little lesson on how to update a prefab. So one way to update your prefab is you drag your good object from the hierarchy down into the project window, let it go, and it will ask, would you like to create a new original prefab or a variant? I want to make original because I don't want to basically be relying on that other, the original gem that is not set up correctly. So I could just do original prefab. Another way to fix it is you go fix the prefab, the original prefab itself. So what I can do is add that box collider. Let's just open up this guy, the original gem pickup, and the box collider fits perfectly well. So that's probably the simplest way, is to just, if the only thing wrong is like something like that, and remember it has to be a trigger. But if you know, there could be a different situation where you have a lot of things to fix, and you don't want to have to manually make all these changes to the original prefab. You just want to make a new original prefab, and so you would do that. Okay, now let's see if this works better now. Okay, we're gonna go up there and see if we can handle this bat guy. Okay, shoot and dodge. Sometimes I miss, but I'm getting pretty good at this. Okay, one more and he's done. Oh, I missed. Actually, I'm going to let him get me one time so I have some health that I need to heal. Boom, and then there, he's gone. Okay, and there I'm in the middle of the explosion of all the pickups. Bunch of gems and health, which I can use. And then I can pick up all these gems. And now he's respawned and come back for his revenge. And didn't need that health, so it made a funny noise. Run away! Okay, thank you for watching LewyT Amusement Academy Part 23. If you learned something today down here in LewyT Game Lab, then please give us a like, subscribe, and or share with your friends, frenemies, enemies, and even your nemesis. Next time, we're going to learn how to create a new kind of pickup item. And this time, it's going to be called experience. Now, if you know what that is, then if you know kind of where we're going with this, we're going to start building an experience and leveling system.